Ahoy, everyone. My name is Bobby Shortle, and I'm here with Nick Rocco Scalia, and we are the Intrepid Filmographers. Every miniseries, we chart a course through the full filmography of an under-discussed genre or journeyman filmmaker. In this expedition, we do our best to try and be explorers, using our years of film knowledge to help guide us, but always being open to discovering new things about the medium we love so much. And this week, we conclude our special expedition to the films of Peter Jackson with the finale of the Hobbit trilogy, The Battle of the Five Armies, and ask ourselves the age-old question: why is there a CG Billy Connolly in this movie? Nick, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. I never mind seeing Billy Connolly in any form, but if there is a least favorite form of Billy Connolly, it's definitely CGI Billy Connolly.
It's weird CGI Billy Connolly riding a CGI pig?
Yeah. And I'm a much bigger Boondock Saints fan than anyone who does what I do for a living or does a show like this should ever be, but I love that guy and pretty much everything he's ever done, including that. Yeah, we'll get to his part in the Battle of Five Armies.
The Battle of the Five Armies. The five armies that are clearly defined in this movie what the five armies are when you count them out.
I got to tell you, though, one of the things I was doing this time was trying to keep track, trying to sort of keep count of the armies. And when you're doing something like that, that tells you that something is wrong with the movie that you're watching, I think.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about his final narrative film, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. And at the end, we're going to have a discussion about our rankings of the Peter Jackson films, like our individual rankings of where we place them. I think that should be a fun discussion as well, and probably might be more to talk about there than this actual movie. So as we've talked about in the previous two episodes, the decision to divide this story into three movies, they were always going to have to pay that check. That check was going to come due at some point. There had to be a third movie. I mean, after the first two movies, and two movies that we both, I think, if you go back and listen to our episodes, we're very much like, these are pretty good. Like, these are better than we remember them being, kind of thing. And overall enjoying them a good deal. You know, this one was always waiting for us at the end of the road. And we're here to talk about it finally. I would say, I remember when I saw this in the theater, we talked about this originally. I liked Unexpected Journey, didn't love it, really liked Desolation of Smaug. So the point when this movie's coming out, I was like, okay, maybe he's figured it out, right? He's figured out what he wants these movies to be. And yeah, I don't think it's a great idea to split these up this way, but you know what? Like, I'm not as good a filmmaker as Peter Jackson is. Like, let's just let's see what he does. And I walked out of this one basically being like, that's exactly what I was afraid of the moment they announced they were splitting this thing into three movies, and was just completely put off by it. Like, the point where I was like, bad taste in my mouth, don't want to ever watch these movies again, was kind of how I felt after seeing this movie the first time. Do you remember your reaction the first time seeing this?
Yeah, I don't think I disliked it as much as you did, but I was definitely a little disappointed by it. This was the only one of the trilogy that I didn't see in theater, so that was a problem too. That kind of held it back a little bit, where I really enjoyed the first two and saw them when they first came out, and I don't know what it was. I guess it was just like really busy that winter or something. It came out like Christmas time, right?
Oh yeah, all came out that same window, December 15th.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was, but like something prevented me from getting to the theater to see this one. Maybe it was the reviews. I don't actually remember, but it was a couple of months later that I saw it, and I remember thinking, oh, well, okay, now I've seen it, and I don't feel quite as bad about missing it on the big screen. So
yeah,
I mean, my feelings about it haven't changed much, and it sounds like yours haven't really either.
No, not much. So I'll say after watching this was, I wasn't as I guess, completely despondent or angry about it as I was the first time watching it. I watched this and I don't think it's a good movie, right? But I think I was like, okay, like, it was fun and entertaining at times. It has stuff in it that I think is pretty good, but it has a lot of padding and stuff where I feel like it's a 2 hour and 25-minute movie on the running time. It's actually about 2 hours and 8 minutes long, I think, before credits. You have a 2 hour and 8 minute movie where there are really two things of note that happen, and then everything else is just would have been a 30-minute battle scene in another one of these movies, is stretched out thin to be an entire movie. It doesn't really have a beginning, middle, and end. I mean, there's stuff that happens at the beginning, stuff that happens in the middle, and stuff that happens at the end of the running time, but it doesn't have the structure of a movie, or a story, right? There is no even a point where for the first time ever, he abandons the like opening scene that is apart in time from what we're seeing in the main movie, right?
Yeah, the sort of cold open, which this movie kind of does. I mean, if you look at what it is, the whole first sequence is a cold open, really, because it doesn't really have much to do with the rest of it. It's
he's like, this should have been in the last movie.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of like a James Bond movie, right? Like you have this like awesome action scene at the beginning that lasts about 10, 12 minutes. That is usually an unrelated thing or like kind of prompts the thing that 007 is doing in the rest of the movie. And like, that's what the Smaug stuff at the beginning of this feels like.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole, like you could just chop that off, kind of end it there. There's this victorious moment at the end of that. And it's like, there you go. 15 minutes. And we concluded the trilogy pretty successfully.
Yeah. It's over. It's done. Smaug is dead. Yeah. So, I mean,
And I thought, I was saying this to you earlier, and let's just get it out of the way now. My recollection of this was that was like 45 minutes or something. Like that was a ton of this movie. I remember structurally it was very uneven, but I didn't realize it's like 15 minutes. It happens. It's over. We're moving on to other things. Most of them kind of just show up in this movie. Like they were not really set up well in the other two. And here we go. Here's a new story that's nowhere near as interesting as the one that we just saw 2 movies that we're following through it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the things the other movies have been sort of like pushing down the line have to be addressed more here. And I think the movie suffers from it. Like a lot of characters we don't care about, a lot of storylines we're not really invested in that they're going to put time into in this, as if this will give you some emotional through line, and it just doesn't work because it just hasn't really. Those other movies sort of like were like kind of pushed into the side, those characters to the side, and then expect you to have like a thing here. And also characters that I do care about, they kind of do really stupid things with. So it's
the characters that we are kind of invested in and have been for 2 movies, they're barely in this. We see less of Bilbo in this one than we do in any of the other 2. And the dwarves that we were really starting to get to know in the last movie, they're back to being this, amorphous blob of dwarf-looking people that are doing stuff that's all basically kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, very few of them have any individual moments in this, where there were some really great ones in the last, particularly in the last movie, but certainly in the original also. Yeah, it's kind of a mess in a lot of ways. Not like, I will agree with you though. I mean, there are moments that are really great, really stirring, very Peter Jackson-esque. I mean, it is like, what's it, about an hour and 15 or hour and 20 minutes of this is just one sustained action sequence, which is impressive technically. There's not much super memorable about it, but there are a couple moments in there where I was like, yeah, that's a quintessential Peter Jackson sort of thing there, and I really enjoy that. But like this is the one of the 3 where I was like, am I really watching a Lord of the Rings movie right now? Like, this feels like kind of something else entirely, and something not as good.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems, right? So, I mean, let's just start from the beginning, because I think, like you said, there's not a lot to really break down here. So I think if we go like kind of block by block, it's probably the best way to dive into our thoughts on it. I think it opens with the Smaug scene, which I think is spectacular. It is really, really well done. It looks great for the most part. Smaug, once again, Cumberbatch gets to do his thing, and I really like the sort of like, you get an actual face-off between, the Luke Evans character, Bard, and the dragon, which I think is pretty cool. I think, and all that stuff feels the most Jackson-y stuff in the movie. I really like, how that is staged and put together. Though, the noose around, I think this movie's neck in a lot of ways is this human storyline that they're trying to make as a pillar of importance here, which is like, I can get on board with the Luke Evans character and sort of his idea of what his character is, but I don't care about the political machinations of this town. I don't care about the master. I certainly don't care about the worm tongue-esque
Alfred. Yeah,
Alfred guy.
He's prevalent in this movie. He was annoying in the last movie. He was one of the weakest things about it. The master gets killed kind of spectacularly here, which I love. That's a great moment here, one of the best. And then this character just keeps showing up, and we know that we hate him. We know that he's not going to make a hero turn at any point.
Yeah.
And it's not a good performance. It's not a fun character. He's just an asshole, and he's annoying, and you just want something bad to happen to him, and something bad's going to happen to him, and I don't think we have to wait. I don't want to have to wait 2 hours and 20 minutes for that.
Yeah, every time you come back, I'm like, I don't need any more of this guy. Like, why do I keep getting this guy? You know, it's like he's doing the same beat over and over and over again. And that's the thing where it's like, you know, we talked about through all these movies, and I think, again, it's rearing its head the most here because this movie really becomes, I would say, like the most imitation fake Lord of the Rings movie of any of them, where it wants everything to be super serious, super life and death. So when you start throwing in characters like this guy, who is obviously like a very broad, very like, you know, children's character book bad guy, like it might as well be like, you know, in Lemony Snicket or something. You know, it's like, it just doesn't work here. Like, I just don't need a guy who's like, yeah, where's Mr. Hobbit? You gonna, you know, you little stupid hobbit, I'm gonna whatever you know, like I dress up like a woman and stuff.
I was gonna say the nadir of this movie is when he's dressed up like an old lady and someone questions his heroism. He says, "Well, hey, a brave man that wears a corset." Like, come on, bro. Yeah,
I know. It's real. That whole storyline sucks.
And like, if you cut that out of the movie, it would lose nothing. It would improve itself. It would be better without it.
But they're trying to give you some sort of foil, right, to the Luke Evans character, and it's like again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, all these
is completely fulfilled. I remember you said that a couple episodes ago. Maybe it was on air. I don't remember if it was. But you were like, you know, this character fulfills his purpose, and then he's just kind of hanging around. There's nothing left to do with him, and he's good. As
he
you
is
mentioned
good
in the last movie. He's got real screen presence. He has this very, you know, Viggo Mortensen-esque. He has a Mortensen quality about him, you know, which is exactly, of course, what you want in one of these movies. And like when he kills Smaug, that scene is incredible. As you were just saying.
Yeah.
Like the first 12 minutes of this, you know, it's a disaster movie, epic. It's everything we wanted the finale of Game of Thrones to be a few years later, which completely ripped off a lot of the shots we see and a lot of the moments you see there. But yeah, this whole thing where they're fleeing Lake Town and Smaug is just raining fire down and everything. It's like, fuck yeah, that's what I want out of one of these movies. And then that face-off that you mentioned, the stuff with his son, I think is wonderful. Balancing the arrow on his shoulder. Really, really, really nice. Like I was like, okay, I know the rest of the movie's not this good, but like, what if it is? I was like, really? I had this moment where I was like, maybe this one's actually awesome. And because I didn't see it on the big screen back in the day, maybe I just missed out on how good it was.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was disabused with that notion pretty quickly after that.
And I mean, I will say, I think like the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie is pretty good. Like it moves pretty fast. Like we get this scene. We sort of establish what's going on with the dwarves in the mountain, and we get quickly. And again, the movie is like speed running this like Thorin dragon sickness. He's gonna, you know, and really trying to lay on thick the gold is as you know, seductive as the ring.
It's the ring, right?
You know,
like it's so obviously trying to do that, and we've seen that done so much better before by all these same people. Like that's another thing. Like I don't know how important that is in the book, but like I don't want that here, you know? Like it serves no purpose, because it's just like I'd rather be watching Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, where a character goes through basically this exact same thing.
Yeah, where he's like starts talking like Smaug, and they like almost start like superimposing the two voices together, and I'm like I just, not that Armitage is not good, because he is good in this movie, and there are moments, he has real great moments in this movie that I want to talk about, but, you know, we've talked about this character throughout the other movies. You never gave me a reason to love him, really, so this, like, fall does not affect me in a character sense, because, like, it always seemed like he's kind of been a dick. So it's like, because he's being a dick again, and everyone's like, how come you're being such a dick? And I'm like,
the first half of this movie, it's like Thorin being an asshole over and over and over again in a few different ways to a few different sets of people.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of just arrogant and you know, I guess the thing about the dragon sickness and all that, it's thematically relevant to this world, right? I mean, as you said, it's a parallel to The Ring, but like The Ring is in this movie too. So
I know. Yeah,
we need to have both of those things? I don't care about the Arkenstone. I'm sick of hearing the name Arkenstone, because it just kind of reminds me of the Clintons. Like I feel like that's how he first came into power. He seized the Arkenstone from the wilds of Arkansas. And anyway, I feel like that plot is dealt with in the last movie, to the point where we really don't need to see that anymore.
Yeah.
But we're still kind of spinning our wheels about that, and then we're just setting up this battle, and like every piece that they were putting into place for that is like, I don't really care to see that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie is just, here's this thing,
Yeah.
enjoy.
I mean, we got a classic Legolas stuff is coming, looking at stuff scene, and then we, you know, it's like Legolas is like one move is like staring out into the horizon, being like,
Orlando Bloom is very good at that.
he is very good at that.
Yeah, it's
You know,
his specialty.
And I do think like part of this opening stuff, right, is stuff that does feel like it should have been connected more to what happened in the last movie, right? I like the Dol Guldur like sequence with Gandalf and Galadriel, her like doing that thing where she's fighting off Sauron, and you're seeing how powerful all of these people are when they're like sort of full on, you know?
Yeah. Saruman gets a pretty kick-ass fight scene in the beginning of this. There's a great shot also. I don't even remember where it was. Like, I feel, I took notes on this movie, but like they feel a little disjointed, and I think that's the movie's fault more than it is mine. But there's a wonderful shot. It's early on where we see all of the dwarves kind of on that precipice where they entered the Lonely Mountain, you know, the riddle and all that stuff. It's overlooking Lake Town, which has been destroyed, but then, you know, it's after Smaug has been killed and everything is kind of back to normal and they've accomplished their goal, which is not a thing you want your characters to do at the very beginning of a movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a weird beginning to a movie.
It sure is. And as you said, like, it made me dislike the ending of the last one even more. Like, I was kind of defending it the last time and you were, I think, right about it. But there is this great shot of all of them kind of overlooking. It's very epic. It's, you know, got lots of distance in it. Reminded me of some of the shots in Return of the King. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really nice too. That's a great visual. And I really came to like those characters in the last movie. They're barely in this one. Yeah, which is a little sad, but there are some nice kind of visual moments. That's certainly one of them. There's a few later on. There's
great visual geography in that scene, like you're saying. Like
there is.
You see the destroyed Dale in front of them, and then you get to see how kind of like small and you know, vulnerable Lake Town is like this thing just literally in the middle of the lake, like this little like island town in the middle of this lake. Though again, it's one of the things where it just feels like some of it feels a little either, you know, done in the cutting room or reshooty or, you know, first drafty, where it's like Bilbo's like, I saw it. Smaug fell and now he's dead. And it's like, that's it? Like, that's where, like, that's how, like, it's just like, I think I saw in the distance the dragon fall and I'm sure he's dead now. It's just a weird way to communicate information, you know, back and forth in that way. But, yeah, so, I like the Dol Guldur stuff. I really like Cate Blanchett in that scene. That is like straight out of Tolkien lore. Like while the stuff is going on at the Lonely Mountain, Galadriel's like tearing down the gates of Dol Guldur and like banishing out, you know, the necromancer Sauron from it. And I think it's really cool, in that, you know, but like, almost immediately we're like thrown right back into this like mishmash of dwarf stuff. Though some of the only dwarf stuff we really get. Though I do think like there's that moment where, you know, they're looking for the Arkenstone. We realize Bilbo has it. You know, he does his little like, they did that little flashback where he's kind of like remembering when he takes it or whatever. We all already know he has it. Like it's just one of those things too where it's like, what information do you think you're giving us right now that we didn't already know? Obviously Bilbo has it. Like you know, it's just one of those things. But I love the acorn, that little moment with the acorn where he's like, oh, it's an acorn from Bjorn's garden or whatever.
That is nice, yeah.
I'm going to plant it. And this one's where like Armitage, when he's allowed to play a little bit more of that, like, you know, goodness in the character, I think really has the juice as a performer in it. Like he gets that smile on his face and they really have like a real, you know, real moment together, which I really, really like a lot. And I wish there was more of that.
I totally agree, and I feel like almost this entire trilogy, like all the Thorin stuff, I like his performance, I like the character, I believe in the character, and all these things that are seducing him and these ways that he's like kind of turning evil. I never really buy any of that. So it's like, would this be okay just without that? Like, would this work if Thorin was just kind of, you know, like an Aragorn kind of character where we know he's good, we know he's righteous, we're on his side the entire time, and, you know, then he dies his heroic death, and we've just kind of always liked him? Because I feel like all the other stuff is like, you know, he's gonna eventually make that turn that some characters are not gonna make, and
of course.
So the predictability of it's like makes me think that all of those conflicts. I like some of the early stuff in the first one where he's just wary of Bilbo. But it's like, if that's the only time we don't like him, I think it would be better rather than all this other stuff where like, oh, he's betraying his brothers in dwarfdom, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he's being selfish and greedy, but we know he's not really going to end up being selfish and greedy. And it's like, do we need it?
He needs some sort of arc, right? I think, you know, Aragorn's arc in The Lord of the Rings, right, is like he's meant to be king but doesn't want to be king. That isn't the arc that Thorin has, right? Because Thorin perfectly accepts his birthright.
He definitely wants to be king. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I think because of that, I mean, the arc. I haven't read the book in many years, right? But the idea is he does have this sort of like, you know, temptation of the gold and wanting to be in it. But like, again, this whole movie is like much like he did with Helm's Deep, where he blew up like a single chapter into this epic conclusion to the second movie. He's taking not like a chapter of the book basically and making it an entire movie is essentially what he's doing here. Like, he's doing Helm's Deep times 10 right here to try to take a very small amount of actual prose and story and blow it up. So in order to do that, he extends stuff like the dragon sickness and all of these things, you know, instead of, you know, what it should be is like probably a 20-minute part of the movie and not an hour and a half long part of the main thing of the movie, you know, because all the dwarves are doing for most of the movie is sitting in that mountain, you know, either doing what he says begrudgingly or yelling at him and nothing else, right? And I think even just to keep on the Thorin line a little bit before we, you know, in this dragon sickness thing, I think even the scene where he kind of like turns and becomes and realizes what he's doing, I think it feels so unearned to me because it's like
barely in the movie.
There's nothing that
sort of happens.
spurs it to happen, right?
He just kind of changes his mind, and then we're back on his side. And it is, I mean, the scene that follows that I think is really good. Like when the dwarves are back together, love it.
Yeah.
I just, as I was saying, I mean, all this other stuff in between, it's like it's all sort of a foregone conclusion, and we're wasting a lot of time on it. And it either needs to be developed further, or I think just needs to be gone entirely because it adds very little to this.
Yeah. And I think too, the other thing about this movie that I think really we've been talking about in the other two movies in little bits, but again, once again, this movie has to like deliver on all the stuff it's setting up, is this trying to make the mountain so important to like the lore of Lord of the Rings. Like, it's so important because it is the gateway to the north, to the kingdom of Angmar, and if that kingdom reforges, what will happen to Middle Earth? And it's like, you should have just let this be a dark fantasy children's story and not try to make it a Lord of the Rings prequel. And this movie is stuffed full of so much of that stuff. It feels like it needs to connect it so directly to
we never hear about the kingdom of Angmar. Like when they mentioned that phrase the first time, it's like, was that even mentioned in the last two movies, or are they just bringing that up now?
They're just bringing it up now,
okay,
you know, other than
just
saying the Witch King of Angmar, who is obviously the head of the ring wraiths,
right? The necromancer.
No, he's like the ring wraith chief. He's like the guy who Eowyn kills in Return of the King. You know, he's like the chief ring wraith, basically. So like,
oh, that's a good movie. I love that scene.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's a great third movie, and you know, I think. You know, and look, Angmar is a place, and obviously in the Lord of the Rings, you know, lore. So is that fortress they talk about, Dol. What was it? But what is the Angmar fortress that they keep saying?
Oh, that is a cool. It's a nice looking, not nice looking, but it's a cool looking location.
It's a very cool looking thing.
The one with the very sort of thin, the castle that looks like it's made of like 2D planes or something. That's really cool.
Yeah, I can't remember what the heck it's called. They
keep
saying that's where they go. That's where they go to look for it, right? Gundabad.
Sure. Meaningless. It's all just. I want it to mean something, but it all feels meaningless.
Gundabad. Legolas says it so many times.
He does.
It's a really nice design.
He does, and yet neither one of us can remember.
No, I know.
So what does that tell you?
You know, and the really sad thing is you mentioned, right, the idea, right, of Bilbo's in this movie so little. And it's one of the things that again is so smart about what Tolkien did with with the Lord of the Rings, which was like give the hobbits like a task to do that doesn't involve a big battle, and have like the people who are good at the big battle have the big battle scenes, right, in the movies. And in this, again, because it's a children's book, it's fine if you just knock Bilbo out and there's a battle that happens, because you don't even see, because here's the thing about the Hobbit, you don't even see the battle. Like, he gets knocked out and then he wakes up and they're like, the battle's over, and in this, you have to they have to create situations for him, right, to have stuff to do, which I think some of them are good. And whenever
it's a little fetch quest sort of action. He's like running from place to place and talking to this person, and it's it's one of those video games where you're doing the thing where you're seeing the battle in the distance. Like, man, I would like to participate in that, and not be like bringing water to this person.
Yeah. And whenever Freeman is on screen, it's like for a couple of moments, the movie remembers like what it's supposed to be. And you get some like good scenes with him where you're remembering, oh, this is the stuff that was so good about the Hobbit stuff in Lord of the Rings, right? Which is like this little guy who, has no business being here, but feels a responsibility to help because, that's what you're supposed to do, right? And he's got a great couple scenes, the acorn scene we talked about, the scene where he brings the Arkenstone, to Thandriel and Bard, and, all like a couple of other moments as well. And I think he's really good in those moments, but but there's so little of them in this movie that you just like, the thing I was struck the most by is, especially once the battle starts, we talked so much in The Two Towers, in Return of the King, even in Fellowship, how Jackson was so genius about how he constructed the flow of the battles, where every 10 minutes something new was happening, and you always had this like sort of like on the ground personal connection to go back to, so the battles never felt overwhelming or exhausting, because they always had this pace to them where you had these things to go between, so you weren't just like tons of creatures fighting each other.
This one fulfills the first part of that, right? Like, there is something new happening every 10 minutes, but we care less and less and less every time, because there is nothing to connect it, nothing to connect us to it. You're absolutely right.
So much of it is just gray things, CG things in armor, that I'm like, wait, are these the dwarves or the orcs?
It's very, very, and I will tell you, like, we've complained a little bit about the CGI in this trilogy, and people have. There's some genuinely bad, very rushed looking special effects work in this movie. When the elves, when they do the phalanx thing where they pile up the shields, and then like
when they
this
jump over,
column of elves jumps over, it's like, that wouldn't have passed muster in 1995, never mind 2014. Like, what is happening here? Like, this is a Peter Jackson movie. Like, clearly they spent a ton of money on this. It looks like an Asylum movie.
Yeah,
and it's
there's some
how
bad
is that
moments.
possible?
I mean, and then there are beautiful moments,
sure, some of it's
right next to each other, which is, it's tough. But again, it's not to care about any of it, because I'm like, I think even botches the cool idea of like the orcs coming from the underground, like the tunnels. Like, it's cool when those worms
graboids
pop out. But it's like,
I love the graboids. They are barely in the movie.
But it's like, even when they emerge, it's not as powerful as even like, when like the orcs are coming in, or are in Mordor and are coming out of the ceiling and stuff like that, right? There's nothing that feels like that in those moments.
There is a great bit, before I forget, the trolls. I always like the trolls.
Yeah.
And there's a scene here where one of them has like a battering ram helmet, this like angled helmet on his head, and he like just dive bombs this door, this gate that they're trying to break down, and hits it and knocks it over, and then like falls on his ass. It probably hurts to do that. And it's such a wonderful, it's everything I want this movie to be, right? Like, it's this cool special effect, this amazing looking creature, and then this like moment of comedy that is like nicely rooted in kind of what that character is. And it's gone in a blink, but it's a fun moment in the midst of like you said, a bunch of gray swirling nonsense.
The other part of the problem too is, right, I want to say, like, of course, we've got the elves show up, they want treasure in the mountain, the people want their share of the treasure from the mountain that they were promised. We do get, I think, a really cleverly staged scene between Bard and Thorin when they're talking through that like long gap in the makeshift sort of wall that had been built by the dwarves.
Oh yeah, it looks like an iris shot. There, you're kind of seeing them through a hole. That is cool.
I like that it was a clever way of doing that, right? I want to point that I think it's a clever filmmaking thing that Jackson did there, and I think, but the problem here is like, it's like, unlike the Lord of the Rings battles, right? I don't have a clear idea who the movie feels like we should be rooting for at any one, other than we don't want the orcs to win, obviously, right. But it's like,
yeah,
okay,
are we team elf? Are we team dwarf? Are we team survivors of Lake Town? Agreed.
Yeah. It just feels very weird, right, in those moments to sort of be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And I think and I think that's part of the problem too with the pacing of the battle is Jackson also is sort of like, okay, I've got to set up this big sort of like confrontation that I feel like the elves are going to fight the dwarves, right? But that's not going to happen. He's not going to have the dwarf army and the elf army start killing each other in the movie. So, and the orcs are coming, so you're just waiting for them,
right.
to show up. So it's like, okay, it all feels just like when Gandalf shows up and starts telling Thranduil what's going on. Thranduil's like, why should I believe you? And I'm like, it's fucking Gandalf. What are you talking about? Like, don't insult us as the audience. Like, we've watched now 6 movies, like, of this guy. There's no way this elven dude would be, like, not listening to Gandalf. We know how the elves deal with Gandalf, and it's always with respect and, like, reverence, right? So it's like, I don't need this. Like, I don't need them to pretend like they don't know what's going on. So all that just feels like, again, it just feels like padding. It feels like fluff to just get us to the point where the battle starts. And then when the battle starts, it's also not satisfying. So you get this big thing. And then there's this giant push in the movie narratively to be like, we got to get out there and help them fight. And I'm like, there's 12 of you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or 13 of you, whatever. There's 13 of you. Like, am I really supposed to believe that the 13 of you will make the difference in this battle between these orc armies and all of these elves and dwarves and men that are already fighting? Like, it just does not feel like a real narrative push to me. To be like, unless Thorin joins this battle, we're lost. Right. Like it's such a weird feeling to me.
And even the staging of it too. Like, a lot of the battle scenes in this we see the dwarves and they're just cutting their way through like just endless waves. It's very much like a video game, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no drama about it. There's no real staging. They're just like swinging their swords and orcs are kind of flying all over the place. Yeah, a little bit of that, we understand that they're very strong and they're very tough and everything. But like, if you think back to like the Return of the King, which was a battle epic very much like this movie, and clearly what this movie is trying to emulate, there's always stakes. It's always very clear. They're all very vulnerable and fallible, and you miss a swing or something and someone hits you and you get knocked out and you have to get up, and there's like very little of that here. So even when clearly they're outnumbered, clearly they're smaller, and these forces are encroaching on them from all sides, but like there's never a sense of like that danger that you're in the midst of the battle kind of danger that we get in Return of the King.
Because there are very few characters that are in the majority of the battle that we care about in this movie. That's the thing. It's like you go back to thinking about the battle in Gondor, and Minas Tirith in Return of the King. There are pods of characters that we care very much about in each section of the battle. Right. Every time we do Jackson will do a big flourish of like, here's a big thing happening. And then all of a sudden you're back with one of these pods of characters that you care about, seeing the battle on the ground from wherever they are. And so it connects you to what's going on a much bigger scale. So you care when that battering ram shows up and knocks down the wall, you care about it because you know what's coming next, right? If they get into the city and they overrun the city, this whole civilization is going to fall, and and Frodo's whole thing is going to go, and the world's going to be over, basically, right? And this is like, okay, if these people die, what happens? The orcs get some gold. I don't understand even what their purpose is, you know? So it's like,
right. And can't they just, they went in there and killed Smaug. So like the orcs take it over and they're just, having a feast and a party. And then we just come back in and take it back. And
yeah. It just, again, it feels like, and I don't care. Like, and they do a bad job of being like, this is the dwarven home. This is their home. And I'm like, but where is the home part? It's just a cavern of gold.
And there's only 12 of them, but 13 of them, whatever, right? It's not like their families are there and everything, and it's like, we have to defend them. It's like, no, it's just a big empty place full of gold, and you're right.
So that's why I think a lot of it doesn't work. I think it starts working more, obviously, once the dwarves get involved, and we get that thing of them like, okay, we're going to go try to take out, like, the general. We're going to try to get Azog. I think that part works way more, and I'm way more, okay, I'm back kind of in now with the movie, because here are 5 characters that I know and like, and have some connection to, and they're fighting a villain who I've seen through, not that I care that much about Azog or whatever, but I've seen him through all the movies, so there is like a pathos to what this, might actually be.
Yeah, this like suicide mission behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
The shot of them riding on the creatures that they're riding up the mountain looks atrocious.
Yes. Yeah.
There's like, they look like they weigh nothing. It's like sub-video game special effects. But yeah, I agree. Like when they get up there, things are a little bit better. I really like the final battle between Thorin and Azog. I think it's awesome.
Really well done.
Really, really nicely staged. A little Batman Beginsy, but
for sure, yeah.
But like
no, not
really
at all.
Enjoyed all of that very much.
Yeah. I think the other part of it is like, but the problem too is like, Fili and Kili both die, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't care less. Like, it's just like, it's one of these things where it's like, the way that both of them die too, I feel like is meant to really evoke a very strong emotion in you. It's staged in a way that you can tell they're like, here comes the gut punch.
Right.
These 2 characters that you adore are going to die. And I'm like, I mean, Kili, I have a little bit more familiar with because he's had a storyline.
Right.
Fili has had no storyline other than I am Kili's brother, also young.
Yes, exactly.
That is his story.
I mean, Toriel does her best. Like, Evangeline Lilly does a pretty good job later on of selling why his death is meaningful and important, but, like, we shouldn't have to wait for her to say it, right?
No. And we should. And also, I will say, too, I think one of the biggest problems with the ending sequence is, and I felt this way the first time I watched it, and I feel this way here, too. The fact that Jackson and the writers have Legolas be the hero of that whole sequence is so wrong-headed and stupid. They've set up Tauriel as this new, super efficient, super badass elf, and then they just make her like the damsel in distress at the end of it. And it's just, and I'm not even saying this in like a Me Too like kind of way. I'm saying it like just from a pure story perspective, right? It doesn't work because like for this movie, what you're drafting off of Legolas doing that stuff is our knowledge of Legolas from the original 3 movies,
exactly. Right?
Nothing he did in these movies gives where that he would get this moment. It's absolutely her moment to have, considering what has happened throughout the previous movie and this movie. It is her moment to have, especially because this is the guy who killed the man she loves or whatever. Like, she should be the one to take him out. And the fact that Legolas is the one to take him out, I think, like, sucks. And I thought it sucked then, and I think it sucks now as well.
I do like the scene though, the spire that like forms a bridge across the cavern,
cool,
and it's
staging.
Falling apart. There's a fight scene on it, and he's like swinging up over. He's on the bottom of it, and he's swinging up over onto the top. Really nicely choreographed, very like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of moment there. Then the bridge that it forms starts to fall apart, and he's like running along the stones. She could have done that too.
She could have done all that stuff. She's also an elf.
Any elf could handle everything that happened there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I that is one of my main bones pick with the end. I just feel like it's unsatisfying, and it just feels so much like fan service. It feels like, oh, we know you guys want to see Legolas do cool stuff again, so we're going to have Legolas do cool stuff again, because that was our fallback in the original 3 movies is, there's always a big beat where Legolas did something cool. So let's give him like a whole thing in this one.
And he did it in the last movie. Like, we got it already.
I know.
We've seen it.
I know.
It's fine.
Legolas has already had his time. I don't need to see him doing more cool stuff. I know he's capable of doing cool stuff,
And I like the role he plays in this outside of that, right?
Yeah, me too.
As this kind of go-between Toriel and Thandril.
Thandril, yeah.
That works pretty well, and he's very good in it. Like, it's not Orlando Bloom's fault. It's just, I don't know. I agree with you. Like, there's really no place for him here. He should be like kind of on the periphery of this battle, or just, he could be the character that's just cutting through the enemies, and she's the one that we actually have a little bit of investment in, and we just kind of watch her in this because we've never, like, not that he's been in this kind of battle before either, but we've seen him in the other movies that happen, years later. She needs her moment, right? Because there's not going to be any more. We're never going to see her again.
We're never going to see her again. And her last moment is like she gets like punched in the head and she's just sitting there crying on the ground. It's basically all it is, And so, and I also am not invested in like Legolas's like unrequited love for her or whatever, because like she's not a character like in any of their stuff. So it's not like I'm waiting for this grand love story between them, so it just doesn't work from a story perspective. Like, let Legolas be the one who is in danger and she saves him, and then she gets the cool like fight with this guy because she's like, you killed the first person I ever loved, so like I'm gonna kill you, right? So like we just got like a nice revenge story there. Otherwise it's just Legolas doing Legolas stuff, and it's just not as satisfying. I do agree. I think the Thorin fight scene is really good. It has a lot of good staging and little moments and little beats that I think really work.
Azog under the ice, I love that little bit there too.
And I do want to say, I think in this movie, they definitely leveled up the quality of CG on Azog and Bog, like the other main orc. They definitely look much more tactile and real in these movies than they've looked in the previous two. I thought from the moment you first see him in that one of like the second scene or whatever, I was like, oh, like they definitely like did a really good job of making this, obviously because he had to be a major part of the finale of the movie. So they're like, okay, let's, they definitely took a little bit more time on him.
Kind of unfortunate too, though. I mean, they don't really do much through most of this battle either. It's like, okay, raise this flag to signal the people down far below us that are actually involved in all the action. Them kind of standing there is not that exciting.
They're like, Azog the Defiler is here. And it's like, he's just gonna stand on top of this hill.
Yeah, he's General MacArthur or something like that. Like, we don't need that.
And then part two is like this thing, right, where the other thing where like, oh, that other army is coming and they're coming across this place, and then it really means nothing, because the eagles show up or whatever, and then,
Deus ex eagle, sure.
Yeah, again, Tolkien loves his eagles, but it's one of the things I did really like. Though we talked about how bad it looked when they were climbing up the side of the mountain. That scene where they're kind of like the feeling Killy on that one tower and they're on that other like section, and like the snow is like taking visibility down and they're kind of like trying to look through. Thought that looked really nice and like really tactile and real. I'm sure most of it was CG, but I think it looked really good.
The eagles are cool too.
Eagles are cool. Like, I have no problem. The thing is, like, I have no problem with that. It's just the movie is so much bluster signifying nothing, right? It's really what it is, and that's the problem. The problem is like, I don't mind big battles. I don't mind stuff like that if you have the heart of it. There's a heart to it, which he was so good at in those original three movies, and I think just gets lost here completely. That's the main problem. Is like, the movie is the shortest of these movies by far, but it feels just as long, as some of the other ones, because you get bored and exhausted for that like hour in the middle where it's just like CGI mush battle stuff happening all over the place.
I feel like, I took notes on this, and there's just a section that's just missing because what are we going to say about that? Like what happens in that hour in between there that, like, I think we've covered it. Like, I really want to talk more about this, but I don't even know where to go.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with you. I think I will say one little bit I liked was when Thandril was on his big stag deer thing.
That thing is awesome looking.
And he bulled into like a bunch of orcs and they all got stuck on the horns, and then he chopped all their heads off.
And they all get beheaded. Awesome. Yeah. Yep.
That was a really cool little bit. And then the deer dies like right after that. And there's just these things where it's like, he's gonna leave. He's like, there's enough elf blood that's been spilled or whatever, and like he gets like cut off by, the Legolas and Evangeline Lilly, who's all of a sudden her name escaped my brain. Toriel, her name escaped my brain.
She'll always be Evangeline Lilly to me too.
Kate
She'll
Austin.
Kate from Lost.
Yeah.
She
again, something where it's like, you are asking me to feel something in this scene, that I don't feel because I don't have any investment in the dynamics that are happening here. You spent very little time on them. They are just very basic. Like they're very just like,
You wanted more elf politics in this movie.
I just want more character interaction between the three of them. Like,
I agree.
in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the whole like Aragorn, Arwen, oh my god, Elrond stuff, you get like the push and pull between those three characters and what they all want, and what the stakes are. Here you don't get that, right? It just seems like we just got a lot of people who are dicks, like who are just like, I have prejudices and so I make all my decisions based on those. Like that is all is happening. And it's just not, engaging in any way to have that discussion because, you already know by that point, if all the elves seem like they're dead. So what does it matter if he leaves? It's just one of those things where it just doesn't feel like in the dynamics of the battle, like, okay, they went into this, they retreated back into the city. For what reason? Right? The city doesn't have anything. It's a destroyed city already that they're just sort of like hanging out in, So it's like, why do you need to go protect it and retreat to it? Like, isn't there, it's all these
they
things
make
where
a point earlier on when the Lake Town people show up there. It like smells like dead people. Like, why would you go there in the first place?
So all that, and they can't go to the mountain
downtown with the stink of death about it. Yeah, let's defend that to the death.
They can't go, back. Thorin won't let him in the mountain because he's a dick. And the Thandra won't help them because he's a dick. And it's like all of these things, like just, piled on top of one another. And it just becomes frustrating as an audience member because you're like, when you could clearly say like, well, if one person just said this, the whole thing wouldn't have happened, And so it's just, there's a lot going on in those moments that is just frustrating. Thorin's death scene, it's great, mostly because I think the two of them are really great in it, right? Again, I'm not, it's not like any of the big death scenes in the Lord of the Rings movies. Like, it's not like, it feels like it wants to be the Boromir scene, right?
See,
in some ways.
I thought it was pretty close to that, if not the equal of that. I was really... I think that's the thing I was talking about before. I really like Thorin, and he's the character we see probably second most. Him and Bilbo are kind of the heroes of this trilogy, and to see one of them fall like that, and the way he kind of comes to this realization in the moment of his death, and like the love that clearly Bilbo has built up for him over all this time. Martin Freeman is incredible in this scene.
He's incredible.
It sells this so well, and I just, I might have gotten.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. They're so good in it. I think it paves over a lot of the work that wasn't done to earn emotional payoff. Because you say the love that's built up between the two of them. If you can point to me the scenes in the movies that show that love.
No, I agree. It's little moments. It's not even scenes. It's like Bilbo does something that surprises Thorin. Thorin, like in this very fatherly way, is like, oh yeah, good on you, son. That kind of happens periodically through the first two movies, and like that's what I'm thinking back to when they have this like really lovely scene on top of the mountain together. But it's not earned fully, and it's I think built up. I used that phrase before. I think that's incorrect. It's hinted at more than it's developed.
This scene is great acting, and it's really well written.
Terrific. Yep.
So
beautifully shot. Just very it's got everything that it needs. If the whole trilogy was like this, it would be as good as the original.
And I think not focusing on building that relationship better throughout the three movies is, like we said, it's what you're missing the heart of. The thing of the thing in many ways. And I think that I do love it. I'm pretty sure this is a Tolkien line almost exactly, but I do love the thing that Thorin says where he says, if more people valued home over gold, the world would be a merrier place. Was really, really nice. Little moments too, like I just want to rewind, like when Bilbo first shows up to warn them, right, about what happens. I love the way that Armitage says, like, Bilbo. Like when he sees him, like he never expected to see him again after what he did, and I love like that little moment, between them. I love that Bilbo goes back to the mountain after he gives the Arkenstone and tells him to his face what he did. I like all of that stuff, quite a bit. So I think Freeman is great in all three of these. I think he is great, and I think again, if the movies were structured a little differently, were focused down a little differently, if after Del Toro leaves, Jackson has more time to like sit with the movies and figure out what he wants them to be. Maybe you come out with a better result, right? The problem with this movie is this movie makes it hard to recommend any of the movies, because it's like the first two I think are very good. But if you're going to watch the first two, you got to watch the last one, right? You're not going to watch, and the last one,
the second one doesn't
stinks.
end until you get to this one.
Yeah. This movie stinks, and it's like, that's the problem, for me with these three movies, is you can't have one stinker when all three of them are so closely knit.
Especially when it's the last movie, right? If the second one is weak, I think you can get away with that. But with this one, it's kind of you're building and building and building, and then it all just kind of goes off the cliff by the end here.
Yeah. I will say the thing for all the stuff we talked about that I don't like, the thing I hate the most in this whole movie is that stupid scene with Legolas and his dad.
Oh, God.
He's like, you should go north to the Dunedain. There's a man there, the son of Arathorn. They
call him Strider.
Yeah. He's like, oh, okay. I'm like, we don't need this. Why is this in here? Like, I know the Lord of the Rings comes next. It wasn't some grand question in my mind is how did Legolas meet Aragorn? Like, in my mind, he could have met him already. Like, we know that Aragorn is like ages old, so it's like,
well, I mean, it's fan service, and people definitely complain about the fan service. Like, the movie that I kept flashing back to or thinking about watching this was episode 3 of Star Wars, which does a lot of similar things and is kind of structurally a mess also, and is not a good movie, but like at least the fan service stuff at the end of that, right? Like when we see Darth Vader, when we see the helmet come down on his head, that's a pretty powerful moment. That makes it kind of worth seeing that entire movie, and then immediately you want to jump over to episode 4. Like, that's what you want at the end of one of these. You want to I know, I'm trying to give it a little credit here. I love that scene. I love that moment. Yeah, it does shoot itself in the foot toward the end, but it's like, that's how you want to end a prequel trilogy, right? Like with something like that. And this is just like, oh, hey guys, like a wink and a nudge, rather than a like, here's an iconic image that kind of informs what comes later. This is just a, hey guys, remember that Lord of the Rings movie? Pretty good, right?
It's like the Ron Howard film Solo, A Star Wars Story.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard that.
I think the worst parts about that movie are the part where they're like, this is a Han Solo prequel. Like everything. I think that movie is generally pretty entertaining and a lot better than people give it credit for. But the moments where it's like, he says shit like, I've got a good feeling about this at first. Or the way he gets they're like, when he gets to like his name, they're like, oh, what's your name? He's like, Han. He's like, oh, well, who's your tribe? Like, what's your last name? Or whatever, and he's like, oh, I have nobody. They're like, oh, Han Solo. Like, that's where you get Solo from. Yeah, dude.
I didn't know that. I've heard a lot of bad things about that movie. I hadn't heard that.
And it's
like, he gets the blaster and at some point.
Yeah, there are some things that really work about that movie as just like, if it was just a movie about like a smuggler in the Star Wars
space adventure,
would have been really fun.
Yep.
And there are really fun stuff about it. I still recommend that movie to people because I'm like, it's a lot of fun if you can ignore the stupid prequel stuff that's in it, right?
But I mean, this one, just cut the scene out.
Yeah, it doesn't affect anything in the movie.
Nope. Story's over. At that point, the story's over. Everything is resolved. Let's get Bilbo home and have like a nice, warm welcome back to the Shire, and let's get back to we started in a flash forward with Ian Holm. Let's rush to that because we're done here.
And I don't, again, talking about that point where Legolas gets that big hero moment, I don't care about Legolas in these movies.
Nope.
Stop trying to make me care about Legolas.
No, he's so superfluous to these movies.
Be confident in the movie you're making. Don't feel like you have to. The thing about the Legolas stuff that bothers me the most is it feels unconfident. It feels like we've got to give them a Lord of the Rings thing so people will want to like this.
It's
more.
Like you accomplished that in the first movie with Gollum, and those scenes are great. Yeah. Right? Like, we got him there. They resisted the urge to find a way to shoehorn him into these next two. Yeah. Good. And if we wanted to show Legolas and in his home city in the last movie and have him do some stuff there and surf on his shield and whatever he did, and that scene going down the river, great. And then leave him out of this one.
Yeah, exactly.
People are showing up to it anyway. Like, nobody's gonna be like, man, I wish there was more Legolas in that movie.
Yeah,
Like,
nobody.
that's nobody's problem with the Battle of the Five Armies.
No, I do like when he goes back to the Shire, and I like that they're auctioning off his stuff, and he's being all obstinate about
He
it.
picked a really good day to make it back, because they say he was gone for like 30 months, and he picked just the day when his stuff is still like in reach of him.
Yeah. I like the Burton's like, who are you? And he's like, you know who I am. I really like that a lot. And I do.
And there's a great moment. It's just after that he goes back into his home, and we get those camera movements that we saw that I love so much. My favorite scene in An Unexpected Journey is the Misty Mountains song, where that very solemn moment, and these very slow, kind of deliberate camera movements through Bilbo's house, lit by candles, and the dwarves are there like singing this hymn, and we get like that exact same feel, that exact same energy here, and he's reminiscing about them who we know he's never going to see again. That moment really got me, and it nicely kind of bookended the trilogy. Like, I'm not sure you even need the flash forward at the end of this, because you've got that, and that really ties this trilogy together so beautifully.
Yeah, and I will say, like, again, I think it's because it's a character we care about, shot on a beautiful set. The set is so beautiful.
It is.
It's so beautifully lit. Like, and like I said, it's taking its time to just be like, this is a person who's, I love that he picks up the picture of his mother and hangs it back up, and all that kind of stuff. And the prequels, if I don't mind that we get the little flash forward, and we see what he's doing right before Gandalf knocks on the door at the beginning. Like, I don't mind that. Like, I think that's nice, because we don't see Gandalf, right? It just sort of like stays where it was.
Nice. It's all
right?
ADR. We're still we're looking at the map, I think, and we're just hearing him and Gandalf, and that's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. I really like that quite a bit. And then it's over, right? And we get the credit song is very nice. It's Billy Boyd, who played, Pippin, singing the end credit song in this one. I mean, it's really kind of wistful and nice, and it's called like The Last Goodbye. And it would be really emotional if the movie didn't stink, And that's the biggest problem with the Battle of Five Armies, is that I feel like I'm John Lovitz in The Critic. It stinks.
One of my favorite shows of all time, so I don't mind that at all. Bring it back, damn it.
Yeah, let's look up the box office for this baby.
Did okay.
It did totally fine. I think it basically matched the last one. 55 domestic, 700 worldwide, a big 956 total. Like, still no studio complaining about making 956. Studio doing somersaults in 2025 making 956, because movies aren't making that anymore. This was 10 years ago this movie came out. So it's probably over a billion adjusted for inflation. Massive hit. All three of them are massive hits. Like, one of those crazy things though, where like it's a massive hit and nobody ever wants to talk about them or watch them again. It's just one of these crazy things, that happens. It was poorly reviewed, 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's the only one that's a splat on Rotten Tomatoes. Just a poorly received movie, and Jackson doesn't make another narrative film after this. So, who knows if he ever makes one again? But it's an unfortunate end to our series that we have to end with one of the lower entries on his filmography. Whether it's the bottom or not, we'll discuss in a few moments.
We'll find out, yeah.
For us. But, I mean, I guess now that we're at the end of it, how do you feel about Jackson's career as like a block as a whole? Like as a story of, this kid from New Zealand who started out making no budget, horror movies, to, the biggest blockbuster filmmaker in the world, basically.
I'm so glad Peter Jackson exists and that he's had this career. He is, again, we talked about it back when we discussed his first few movies, right? Like, he is just a kid who was drunk on movies, happened to live in a place that was very conducive to shooting really cool looking movies, and, took that and ran with it. And always, there's an integrity about him that I really appreciate, right? Like, he said it right from the beginning. Making the movies that I want to see, and even though there's compromises along the way, like there's always going to be, and every filmmaker has had to do that, or you go out like David Lynch, where no one will give you money to make movies anymore, so it's like you play the game, or you just stop doing what you're great at. He never had to do that, and he was always able to find a way and, put his heart into things, even like this movie that we just talked about, right? Like, you can tell he didn't half-ass it. He did this
No.
trilogy kind of under duress, but he did the best he could with it, and not all the decisions were great, but like, he loves this world, he loves this lore. I just like seeing these movies again. We'll talk about it when we do our list, our rankings and stuff like that. It was very hard for me to do because I thought so many places were kind of interchangeable, and there were so many times like, oh, but I really love this movie and I want to put it up higher, but I can't rank it below this one, which is so awesome. I'm always very wary, especially the older I get, of blockbuster level filmmaking, triple A type stuff, because it's just been so bad lately. And like even his worst movies in that sort of realm, there's still really good stuff in them, like there is still a beating heart and craft and care. And, he's kind of still that kid in a lot of ways. And I really hope he makes movies again. I've said that about a lot of filmmakers that we've talked about that have kind of not retired, but kind of semi-retired. The world kind of needs Peter Jackson, I think, at this point. And I really, whatever it is, does he ever return to Tolkien, do you think? Is there a possibility of him doing another story in this universe?
I don't think so. I feel like he didn't even want to even make these 3 movies, so I don't think so. And I probably wouldn't want him to in most ways. I mean, he's producing that Hunt for Gollum movie that's coming out. That I think
I don't want anybody else to do it. Maybe that's it. Maybe if somebody's going to do it, I want it to be him.
He's not directing it, obviously.
No, I know.
But I think he's having a hand in the script writing and producing it. And a lot of those, it's firmly set in this Tolkien universe because a lot of the actors are coming back to do it. But, I think that'll probably be his place. Like, he did produce that animated movie that came out, I think last year, The War of the Rohirrim, which was like, I think Philippa Boyens wrote that movie, and he produced it, and I don't know who directed it, but it didn't do very much, and I don't think it was very well received so much. But, I think that's probably his place in this world from now on. I just don't think he's gonna probably direct anything again in that place. It's crazy because I was trying to look this up, but he is the number 5 all-time box office director in history. Like, I'm talking worldwide box office. The average of his movies,
a kid from the sticks of New Zealand, right?
Yeah, the average of his movies, which is crazy considering what his first 8 movies, 9 movies were, or whatever it was, whatever first 7 movies. His average box office is $409 million for all his movies. He's made $6.5 billion at the worldwide box office his movies. And he would be higher if it wasn't, obviously the Russos who made the Avengers movies, the last 2 Avengers movies, and made those last 2 Captain America movies, obviously are both on here as well because those movies made $1 bajillion. But the only other 2 directors above him other than them are Cameron and Spielberg. The only 2 people above him. So, like, when
company that I think he's earned his place in, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think when people think about him,
and more so than the Russos,
for sure. I mean, the Russos are very much like really good at a certain thing, but obviously cannot been successful at all outside of Marvel. Jackson belongs up in that upper echelon of big blockbuster directors who have made a huge impact on the way movies are made, and the culture in general, right? And the movie culture in general. And I think, he's in that Spielberg Cameron world because he's also a guy who pushed technology forward. He pushed.
I was just going to say, it's not just the movies themselves, but it's also the things that he did. What a workshop and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the amount of money that the movies that his companies have worked on that have made, it would be probably in the tens of billions of dollars. In 2025,
I mean, not to take anything away from Spielberg and Cameron, but like kids growing up now, like I feel like they don't have the love for the Indiana Jones trilogy and the original Jurassic Park and the Terminator movies and stuff like that. Whereas you ask them about Lord of the Rings, like, oh yeah, those are like some of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Jackson's influence, and maybe it's just because he's younger and because he started a little bit later than them. He's just kind of enduring, and the next person will come along, although who knows who that's going to be at this point. But I feel like Jackson's kind of got a stature now that is kind of beyond the 2 of them.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I still think when people hear Spielberg, like obviously Cameron still has, highest grossing movies
yeah,
of all
and,
time coming
I'm
out
not
every
taking away.
couple
I
of
love all
years.
the Spielberg movies. I think he's
I'm not
great.
talking about love. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
like,
but I mean,
Fire and Ash will be out by the time this episode releases, obviously, and I'm sure it's made $2 billion or whatever.
and no one will talk about it.
No
I was
one will
reading an
talk about it
article
in a
about that
year.
today, like
Yeah.
about how the Avatar movies come out, they make a ton of money, and then they're like forgotten.
Yeah. The thing I'm most excited about is that before Avatar, they're showing the Odyssey trailer and the Avengers Doomsday trailer. They've announced both those trailers are attached.
You are
going to
stay for the movie, though, right?
Yes, of course I'll stay for the movie, and I will have a harumph feeling about it, like I've had about all of them.
I really liked the last one.
I haven't seen it since the first time I saw it. I just think there's a lot of structural problems. I think Cameron is like a bad writer, and I just wish somebody else would write his movies.
Sure.
You know, as an image maker, and also this too about Jackson, both in using real practical effects, using his miniature stuff, or using CG. He's one of the most interesting and diverse image makers,
Sure,
I think, in the history of movies, right? He like, there's even stuff in this Battle of Five Armies we're talking about, in that CGI mush battle scenes, where if the movie was any good, you would be talking about some of these things that he does, where you're like, I've never seen, like, this was before Dune, like these fucking worms coming out of thing, and giant trolls coming out, and like crazy stuff happening.
Troll with the battering ram helmet, love it.
Yeah.
Never gonna forget that.
There's just stuff, and there's so much you're like, whoa, like, look at that, like, and he has a different way of doing it than those other guys we're talking about too, right? They're obviously Spielberg, Cameron. These are some of the other great image makers in the history of movies. But Jackson just has that more wild sense to what he does, that more sort of like freewheeling, willing to go for something that might not work,
something that might look totally ridiculous, and
yes.
Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does, way more than those other guys. I think Spielberg, Cameron, a lot of the other big blockbuster filmmakers, like, they will do amazingly composed, great both practical and effects image making, but they have a much more, like, they know what looks good. Yep. And they are going to make sure they do that, and they know how to make an epic image. And so does Jackson, but Jackson also was like, but what if I do a weird thing with the camera, here, that no one's ever seen before? What if I do slow motion and it's bad slow motion for no reason? Like, this kind of stuff where, like, sometimes it looks good, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but he really is always trying stuff. You can feel that kid, like you mentioned before, the kid from New Zealand still being like, but what if I just get down a little lower with the camera and what if I put it inside this hole and put, like, whatever, like, he's got that still in him, even in the Battle of Five Armies. Like I talked about that shot through the barrier between Bard and whatever. That's really, like,
nice. Yeah.
It's like, that could have looked bad. That could have been the wrong choice, but he does it anyway because he still has that feeling about him, And maybe he's not making movies right now because he doesn't have that feeling right now. He doesn't have that energy to do that stuff.
Well, that's it. Like, he's done. I mean, this is basically work for hire, but it doesn't feel like work for hire. They feel like Peter Jackson movies. Even this one feels like a Peter Jackson movie.
Yeah. I think feels like the least Peter Jackson movie in any of these, for sure.
Definitely.
But I agree with you. I completely agree with you. It's been a really fun ride to go through all of these movies and kind of see that progression and see the ways in which the stuff that happens in 2015 that cost $300 million is totally different, but also in some ways still evokes the stuff he was doing, for no dollars, when he was first starting out. Like, it's really fascinating to see that through line all the way across his career.
Absolutely true. There are dead alive shots and heavenly creatures shots all the way through his career. Like, he was doing stuff because he had no money. Then they give him all the money in the world, and it's like, well, we'll just do this, but bigger.
Yeah, and it's like, no, this is like what he likes to do. Like, it's not just because he didn't have money. He had, and maybe he developed that sense, right, because he didn't have money, but he didn't abandon it once he had it. He didn't become, like, handsomely mounted, like, staged productions, right, once he got
no,
the
and
bag.
then one time he tried to make a prestige pick, he completely failed. So
yeah, he did. He completely failed. Also a really weird movie too, which is, it's one of those things where you just can't help but be weird. So it's just in his blood, I think. All right, we want to do rankings, Nick?
Yeah, let's do it.
So
we've got 13 movies.
We've got 13 movies that we're gonna do. We're gonna start with 13 and go to 1. Do we want to do what we normally do, which is like, okay, one of us will say a movie, if the movie is higher on one of other lists, we'll wait to talk about it until we get to that higher point.
Yeah. I feel like there's going to be a lot of similarities here.
I do too, but like you said, there were kind of three distinct like sections of this list for me, right? There is like the stuff I think is bad. There is the stuff I think is like fun, but like not amazing. Then there is like the great stuff, and then there's like, I guess there's poor. Then there's like the masterpieces to me. Like, there's like, but the stuff that's like the toughest part for me was like the stuff that's like fun and really good, but I don't think is great. That was the hardest little like. I think it's like 3 movies for me to like.
I don't feel
rank.
like there's much of that in Peter Jackson. To me, it's like there's stuff that's bad. There's stuff that is like I would watch it right now, and then there's like top tier A-list, world changing, amazing.
So when
stuff.
I say fun, I mean that. Like I would watch it right now. I think it's great. Like but that section was the hardest section for me to.
Me too, because there's just so many of those. I mean, that's the biggest section of his career. Although there's a lot in that top tier too. I mean, let's just get started. Let's just go ahead and do it. I would say he's only made 2 bad movies.
I would say he's made 3 bad movies.
Okay.
So
all right, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, my bottom is Meet the Feebles.
Okay.
Is that higher on your list?
Slightly. Yep.
Slightly, like 1 higher.
1 higher. Yes.
Okay.
So wait, let's do this. Maybe we'll do the bottom 2 because they're going to be the same. My 13 is The Lovely Bones, and my 12 is Meet the Feebles.
Okay, it's just same thing with me, but flipped.
I knew it.
Mostly because I think the ambition and skill on display in Meet the Feebles is obviously well beyond the budget that he's working with and is very impressive. But I hated watching every single moment of Meet the Feebles.
Me too.
And so for me, it's my least favorite of movies because it's the one that I could never recommend to anyone and I would never want to watch a frame of again, So that's why it's the bottom for me.
Totally fair. The reason why I ranked it a little higher than The Lovely Bones is because I feel like he set out to do something with Meet the Feebles, and he fucking did it.
He did.
He had a vision. He executed it. I don't ever want to see it again. I agree with you. I would never recommend it to anyone. I would never want to tell people. Like, I don't even want to tell people that I've seen it. Although the whole world that listens to this show, they know that I've seen it more than once. I talked about my experience with it. Yeah. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it a bad movie, to be honest with you. I think Meet the Feebles is like, I could see Meet the Feebles being someone's favorite movie. I don't want to meet this person. I don't think this person is well adjusted.
That person should be in jail.
They probably should be, but you can't, there's literally no one, even someone who like murders kids for a living. That's like their thing that they do in life.
For a living?
They would say, that's their job. Yep.
I mean, in this world, who knows?
Even that person would watch The Lovely Bones and like, I sort of see a little bit of myself in that character, but this movie doesn't really work. You know what I mean? Like,
Lovely Bones doesn't work at all, but there are stuff in The Lovely Bones that I think there are moments that I think are good.
Sure,
and
we talked about it. I think about a third of that movie is good. I think all of Meet the Feebles is of a piece with itself, and it all is exactly what Peter Jackson wanted it to be. It's not what I wanted it to be, but I give him credit for following through on this ridiculous artistic ambition that he was able to. I think what else could have done? Like The Lovely Bones, you could talk about. Oh well, if this scene was a little bit different, or they developed this part of it more, or they hadn't gone this route. With Meet the Feebles, it's like exactly the movie that it should be. It is the ultimate version of itself, and I gotta give it props for that. That said, I'm never watching it again. And I agree with you 100%. I don't want to see a frame of it.
Yeah, that's really for me. I mean, again, I do agree with you. I think that, yes, he did make exactly the movie he wanted to make. I just hate it so much that I can't put it anywhere else but the bottom. Even with all the problems that Lovely Bones has, because I think Lovely Bones has a ton of problems. But like we talked about when we were watching it, it did move at a good pace. And I felt like, I wasn't bored by it. And
does Meet the Feebles. It's like 88 minutes long.
Yes, but it felt like it was 7 hours long to me because every moment I was in hell.
That's true.
Every moment of seeing that fucking fly.
Oh, God, and the rabbit with the boils and
disgusting. So those are our bottom 2. My number 11 is Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies.
Ooh, okay. I have it a little bit higher.
Okay. You have it much higher, or do you have it
slightly higher? Yeah.
One higher?
One higher again.
So what's your number 11 then?
My 11 is Bad Taste.
Okay, so it's so funny. We exactly flipped.
So, all right, so let's deal with these two again, like we did with the last two.
So I feel the same way about, I guess, this flippin' ranking as you do about the other two, which is that I think Bad Taste is exactly the movie he wanted to make, right? I think it obviously has a lot of like stuff that's like, okay, we don't need this big gunfight here or whatever, but I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's really funny. I think it's really impressive for, you know, his age and what he was doing. And like, I could say to somebody who like likes schlocky, like kind of funny horror and be like, yeah, watch Bad Taste, right? Uh, I feel like we just spent, you know, an hour talking about Battle of Five Armies, but for me, it's just a little bit like, maybe kind of how you feel about The Lovely Bones, which is like, it's just like, it's not at all, I don't think it's the movie he wanted to make probably when he started out, and it's just got all of these deficiencies that I think for the class that it's in make it, you know, just not a fulfilling movie to watch. Basically.
That's fair. I mean, I think I ranked Battle of the Five Armies a little bit higher just because there are moments, and we've talked about them. We don't need to talk about them again, but there are points in that. I mean, the first 12 minutes of that alone, just the Smaug stuff is pretty incredible, and I think is of a piece of those other two movies, or with those other two movies that are higher up on my list. I love Bad Taste, don't get me wrong. So like everything above those bottom two for me, I think is good. It's a very, there you can draw a line, those bottom two, and even Meet the Feebles. It is very well made for what it is. I just don't like it. But like basically everything but The Lovely Bones succeeds on some level. The reason why I rank Bad Taste there is just because, you know, it actually has a very similar problem to Battle of the Five Armies, where it kind of devolves into these like very boring battle scenes for a lot of its running time. And you know, they're just less exciting to look at in that because they're like shot on 16 and, you know, his friends running around the backyard.
But do you remember the scene where he has to drink the throw up?
It's amazing, sure. But I do think there are moments that are better than that in Battle of the Five Armies. And so that was my only reasoning for that.
I get it. No, I totally get it. And for me, I think that, here's the thing. I think Battle of the Five Armies is a bad movie. Like, I think it kind of stinks. It's a stinky poo-poo movie for the most part.
Using that word, yes.
With some good moments, right? And some really good scenes, and obviously some really high-level image-making things that happen.
But that stuff really stands out to me, and there were you know, there were things in Battle of the Five Armies that really emotionally grabbed me, or like visually grabbed me, or just, you know, intellectually there are some nice ideas in that movie.
You weren't emotionally grabbed when they blew up the cow or whatever?
No, but when the back of his head came flying off and he had to patch it back up, I did feel for him.
It was pretty good. That's pretty good.
Love Bad Taste. Again, I'm like, of the two of us, right? I like schlock, I think, more than you do.
You do, for sure.
I like splatter more than you do. I like punk rock indie horror stuff more than you do.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You'd think that I'd rank that higher, but
yeah, I would.
You know, I'm going to go with the safe choice for this one out of those two.
Okay. My number 9 is, so these next 3 were the hardest ones for me to put in the order. I put it in order, and in another day I might put them in a different order.
I'm going to say like 9 through 5 is that way for me too.
Number 9 is King Kong for me.
Okay.
Higher for you?
No, number 9 is also King Kong.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think we have a very similar feeling where, actually, I thought it might be higher for you because when we talked about it, you were a little more effusive about it than I was.
There's stuff I really love in King Kong, but there's stuff I think doesn't really work in King Kong, and it didn't. That was the one that I saw for a second time that like kind of went down a little bit in stature for me.
This is the most surprising one for me when I was making the list, where I was like, you know, I had this list going kind of the whole time we were watching the movies, where I just kind of was adding them to this list as we went. So I just kind of have a preliminary idea of, in the moment when I was watching it, how did I feel above it? Because, you know, obviously we're doing this over many, many weeks. And I'm like, I don't want to forget months. Yeah. I don't want to forget like how I felt about X movie when I'm watching this new movie, and, you know, when I'm trying to rank them cold, you know, and this one just kind of stayed here. And I was surprised because I was expecting it to be above the next 2 movies on the list that we're going to talk about when we get to them. My problem is, like we talked about when you did the episode, there's just too much bloat on it for me. Too many scenes where I'm like, if you took this out of the movie, it would still be great. It would be so much of a better movie.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't need, and it does feel longer than it needs to be, and it gets to be a little bit much. You know, we talked about it when we discussed it on the show. There's repetition there. Like if you trim the fat on King Kong, I think it would be higher up on the list for me. Yeah. But again, there's some wonderful stuff in it. I would watch it again. Me too. I feel the same way about Bad Taste. I feel the same way about even Battle of the Five Armies. I will see those movies again someday.
Yeah, for me, we're definitely in the, if you told me I had to watch it tomorrow, I would be fine. Like, you know, category, I would enjoy it. I'd be happy to watch it.
Sure. Invite me on another podcast.
Exactly. Like, a great performance of Naomi Watts. the gorilla is effing amazing in it.
Yep.
You know, like there's some great stuff in it for sure. And I
the
love
mezzanine of the theater collapsing when King Kong grabs on it. Wonderful.
Yeah, New York looks great. Love the way
Yep.
New York looks in this movie.
Opening is really, really well done.
Yes, there's a lot of great stuff about it. Again, we're like you said, we're in the. This is a really good to great movie that I would happily watch again now. But
that's it. Like if King Kong was the best movie of a filmmaker, you'd be like, pretty good career there. That guy knows what
for
he's
the
doing.
previous filmmakers we covered, it would have a chance.
Yep.
You know, for some of them, not for all of them, obviously, but for some
King
of
Kong
them.
is one of the better movies we've talked about on this show.
Yes,
and it's low on Peter Jackson's list. So we're talking about number 9.
Yeah, so I think our number 8 and 7 are going to be the same, but maybe flipped around. I'm guessing. Okay. So my number 8 is Hobbit: Unexpected Journey.
Okay, and my number 8 is The Frighteners, and my number 7 is The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey.
Wow, The Frighteners is that low. I did not expect that from you.
Okay. Love it.
Surprised.
Don't get me wrong.
I know you do, but I'm surprised.
Movie.
So let's talk about Unexpected Journey really quick. Just go over it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, so we don't have to talk too much about it. But I think just a really effective, sweet movie, which has some structural problems like we've talked about. A little too much like episodic vignette type of stuff. But I think it has a real emotional core to it. I think that works with some really, really good performances in it, despite some subpar CG at times. So like that's where I'm at with it with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that stuff.
Yeah.
The Frighteners, to me, it's great. I really, really enjoy it. I just think I don't have the emotional connection there. And also, as much as I really like The Frighteners, I don't think he does much there to push himself beyond Dead Alive, which obviously
Well, let's talk about Frighteners later, because it's higher on my list. So let's not get into Frighteners yet. Okay?
All right, so we've gotten to
my number 7.
Unexpected Journey. Okay.
Yeah, my number 7, which is Desolation of Smaug. Is my number 7. We know your number 7 is The Frighteners, right?
Yep. No, sorry. 8 is The Frighteners. 7 is An Unexpected Journey.
Yeah. I'm guessing that Desolation of Smaug is 6 for you?
No.
Okay. So I'll wait then to talk about Desolation of Smaug.
Okay. I like that movie a lot.
Okay. What's your... So that's my 7. Your 7 is Unexpected Journey.
Yeah.
My 6 is Dead Alive /
Mine
Brain
too.
Dead.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
It will always be Dead Alive to me, by the way.
Interesting that you're completely changing my expectations of your list, my friend.
Did you think I'd have that higher or lower?
Yes, higher for sure. I thought you'd have it higher. I mean, not crazy higher, because we're getting to a point where like you're getting to 5-star movies at a certain point, 4 or 5-star movies, depending on what ranking system you use. I mean, I think like it is the apex of that kind of filmmaking, right?
I was just going to say, it's the pinnacle of splatter filmmaking.
Yeah, like, you put this in Evil Dead 2 sort of like, I feel like for me, in like the pantheon of like, you want to see the best examples of these kind of movies?
Yep.
Here you go,
Too bad, because if you want to see the worst example of those kind of movies, I can give you 1,000 titles.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to see the top tier stuff, it's basically those two.
Yeah, I mean, those two are obviously, I think of a piece that they feel like kindred spirit type of movies in many ways, so there's a ton of iconic stuff in Dead Alive, and I think obviously just unbelievable practical effects, like one of those things where obviously some of it obviously looks like dummies and clay and everything, but it doesn't matter because the scope of what he's going for is so massive.
The energy of it is just incredible. That cartoonish sort of like, let's say, yes, and we're hanging from the ceiling, we're running over, we're swinging around a lawnmower like it's a weapon and chopping zombies up. Yeah. And the fact that he did it on so little of a budget when he was so young and was just kind of like, it's like maybe the greatest student film ever made, even though it's not a student film. I respect all those things very much about it, but I can't put it any higher because there's such great stuff to come, I think.
Yeah. All right. So my number 5 is The Frighteners. So obviously you mentioned it was your number 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frighteners. We talked about it a lot on the show in that episode. I mean, it has, some of it is a like, it just place in my sort of life sort of thing, which I can't shake, in many ways. But I do just think it's like talking about how Dead Alive is like this pinnacle of this splatter filmmaking. I feel like this is one of the best translations of somebody who has that mindset moving into a studio, sort of setting and not losing any of like the energy or wackiness or zaniness that he had when he was, making movies like in his hometown in New Zealand. But now he's got Bob Zemeckis as a producer and Michael J.
Michael J.
Fox
Fox
starring
is a
in
star,
it.
and sure.
And I just love the energy of it. And I think there are just so few movies like The Frighteners, right? There are just so few movies like that are out there. I love how much it's like, obviously Jeffrey Combs is unbelievable in it. I love him in it so much. It's just one of the movies that I just have this, when I watch it, I just feel great when I'm watching it, so it's my number 5.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I ranked Frightener so low is because I don't think, as I was saying before, I don't think he really pushes himself too much farther. Like, he's got all this access to things now, and I don't think it's quite as audacious or quite as amazing an effort as Dead Alive was. But very similar vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the kind of thing where you see The Frighteners and you're like, oh, that's a really good movie. I enjoyed the feeling of that. And what else, what has this guy done before? Then you go back and watch Dead Alive, and like, that's, the first album. That's the, like,
Mm-hmm.
the one that just sort of comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, wow. All right. That's the statement, right? Whereas Dead Alive is like, let's do the same thing, but, kind of on a bigger budget and neutered a little bit from there. And that's the reason why I kind of rank those. It reminds me of, like, the indie album, and then you get on a major label, and the second one's good, but it's not quite, you can kind of detect the money and the production and the need to please the crowd there, and the kind of going through the motions a little bit. And I don't mean that in any kind of condescending way, because I think the movie is great. It's just not as great as the one he made just right before it, to me.
So you're number 5.
My 5 is The Desolation of Smaug.
Okay. If it had got higher than that, I would be like, man, well, you got to see a doctor.
I gotta tell you, though, I really, particularly seeing it the second time, I've always really liked it. I think it's definitely far and away the best in that trilogy.
Yes,
obviously.
Agreed.
It is the one that gets the closest to me to matching the things that I love about the original trilogy. It's got, that's the one, like, Unexpected Journey has, we've talked about that scene so many times, the singing scene. Also the throwing the plates around, the dinner scene is really wonderful there too. Beyond that, there's not as much. And some of the stuff in the Goblin Cave is really fun there too. And the Gollum scene, maybe I like that movie more than I think. But Desolation of Smaug has, like, it's basically all that, it's kind of wall to wall, like, scenes that are like, oh, I remember that and I really liked that. Really nicely staged. And it comes to a really fantastic, that action climax that we talked about last episode, kind of unbeatable. It's a shame that everything gets deflated with that ending, the last minute or so, but everything leading up to that I think is really good, and it's the one that I'm most emotionally invested in. And some of those things, I talked about it the last time, just climbing up the statue and that kind of stuff. That is my absolute kryptonite. Give me stuff like that in movie. Gandalf going into the cave, climbing up the side of that. I think I just like climbing up very precarious staircases. That might be my favorite thing in movies. There's some of that in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy too. Maybe that's just all I'm looking for in cinema.
So now we get to the top 4, which I think we can both agree. I think all 4 of these movies that are left are
exactly
masterpieces. But I'm not sure if our exact order is going to be obviously the same, but I'm guessing it is.
I would almost put money down on the fact that it is.
Okay, so my number 4 is Heavenly Creatures.
Mine too.
Yeah. We talked about this before. Remember we were talking about it. We're like, have we discussed a movie that's better than this on the show? Remember we were talking about that, and I was like, I'm not sure that we have. Right. This is maybe the best movie we discussed on this show. One of those things, right? When you
to that point.
Yeah, to that point. And then we talked about 3 other movies that he made. But I think it's one of those movies that's just amazing to look at when you look at the movies that came right before it and then the movie he makes then. The leap up in maturity and
while still retaining that playfulness too, which is incredible. Like, the tone he strikes in that movie is the kind of thing that I think an older filmmaker or a different filmmaker, I don't know that they could do it. It is, I mean, it makes me sad that he's never made, I don't know that there is another movie like Heavenly Creatures, right? Like that does as much as that does in the way that it does it, really, really doesn't glorify, but really makes us sympathize with characters who are murderers, and who are, the fantasy life that they have, the relationship that they have. Like, it's a movie about friendship as much as it is a movie about murder. And the fact that both of those things work so brilliantly, I mean, that's like very high level cinematic storytelling there. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, if that was the best movie he had ever made, or that's the best movie any filmmaker had ever made, that's an incredible career also. That's a world beater.
That's exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
That gets you into the history books.
Absolutely. Yes. So my number 3.
Like, drop the mic in 1995. I'm done. I made my movies.
I'm
We're
out. I'm out.
I'm going to go be a sheep farmer.
Yeah, exactly. My number 3, and this is where I'm not sure about our 3 and 2. So
Okay.
this is where I'm not sure. My number 3 is Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
Mine
That's
too.
my number. Okay. All right. So then we do have the same exact order then.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what there's more to say about. We should just do these 3 and then just sort of talk about Lord of the Rings in general as a closing.
Okay.
But you know, Two Towers is my number 3. Return of the King is my number 2. And number 1 is Fellowship of the Ring.
Yep. I will say, seeing Return of the King this time, there was part of me that was leaning towards switching those. I've always maintained it is a better movie than Fellowship of the Ring, but the love that I have for Fellowship of the Ring, you know, kind of supersedes everything. So it is a very personal choice, but like being introduced to that world and those characters and just this incredible epic storytelling vision, you can only see it for the first time once. So I just... You know, I Return of the King has so many great scenes, does so many things so well, and Two Towers too.
Yeah,
you know, I forgot how good that one
all
actually
3
was.
of them are 5-star movies.
They are. Yep.
This is the funny thing about like ranking anything and putting numbers on anything, which is that like I can tell you that I think Two Towers, Return of the King, and Fellowship of the Ring are all 5-star masterpieces.
Yep.
But when you tell me you think Return of the King might be a better movie than Fellowship of the Ring, I'm still like, you're crazy. And isn't that hilarious when they're all just like, I think they're all 5-star masterpieces, right? But if there was a ranking for me above like perfect score, like that's a Fellowship of the Ring would be for me. You know, it's just, I think just from, you know, emotional delivering in an emotional way, you know, economy of storytelling, you know, pure just focus down on characters and really spending time with characters. I think it just is a masterstroke of this type of movie. Like I just don't think any other movie has ever done it as good as Fellowship of the Ring has done it. You know, those 3 movies you know, I think are basically the crowning achievement of blockbuster filmmaking. It's as good as you can hope that those kind of movies to be.
Yep.
You know, and it's astounding that he made them and that they all worked and that they were all as good as they were, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better myself. And it's, you know, whichever one you like the best, it's the greatest trilogy of all time. It is the one I remember when they came out, and I always loved my Star Wars movies, you know, the original trilogy, obviously. I was a huge Indiana Jones fan when there were 3 movies in that trilogy. And those started coming out, and I was like, oh, this is the one now. Like that, I never thought I would see anything to blow away my expectations of what this, you know, high-level blockbuster filmmaking could be, and handily those movies did it. So
yeah. And you know, it's one of those things too where, you know, you realize, especially after watching the 3 Hobbit movies, and I don't mean this in derogatory to 3 Hobbit movies, because we've talked about how much we actually really like 2 of them, right? It's just that they came out and were developed and made in the perfect time when things hadn't gone fully over to digital CG world. There was still a lot that had to be done practically to make it look good. And that sort of scrappiness that he was able to bring from his previous filmmaking and be like, no, I want this to be tactile and physical. And I have this, you know, a physical effects studio that I want to give all this work to, and so they're going to build all this stuff, and, you know, and then we're going to create this digital department to take care of this. These movies are made 10 years later, they're all digital effects. And I don't think even if the stories are exactly as good and they're exactly as good, I just don't think they hit the same and I don't think they're as timeless as they are.
And also I was thinking about this too, like the late 90s and you know, 2000, 2001 or so. I mean, obviously a formative time in my life. I'm really coming of age as a person who loves movies. But the things that I was really into back then, you know, I was kind of over my blockbuster thing, you know, that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. But like the things I was really, you know, I was getting into Paul Thomas Anderson and Wes Anderson and Tarantino. And, you know, that was the thing. That was the hot thing at the time, you know, kind of still was. That 90s boom was still happening. I was like, yeah, like if this is what I'm going to watch now, you know, I don't care about what Hollywood is puking out every summer or whatever. You know, not that I still went to see all those movies. But when this happened, it was like, right, like these movies can be really great too, and kind of just like, it was like feeling like a kid again, even I was so young at the time, and but even seeing them now in my 40s, I guess I'm not even in my early 40s anymore. I'm moving very close to the mid range, but still there is a joy in these movies that is a very sort of childlike wonderment. Like that is so hard to do. And it feels just so effortless for Peter Jackson because, like we keep saying, he's still that person. And, sometimes I think everybody needs to get back to that.
Yeah. Get back.
Well, yeah, he also made that movie.
He also made that movie. Yeah. So I think that's going to wrap up, Peter Jackson for us.
Wow, that was an undertaking. Like
it was an undertaking.
I was daunted by it. And, we started a very long time ago.
We did.
Almost 5-6 months at this point we've been organizing movies.
Probably something like that. I got to look at when we started recording.
Maybe 4.5, 5 months.
Yeah.
It's a long time. It's the longest filmography we've done thus far, and I'm looking forward to taking some more bite-sized things in the future, but I'm really glad we did it. Like, I'm sorry that I was a little bit, because this was the audience chosen one.
It was.
Like, man, for a while there, I was like, thanks a lot, audience.
Nick had a lot of consternation about this one, for sure.
I did, but and like the running times, particularly of this last batch, ever since King Kong, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Very happy to do it. Very happy to be able to talk about some of these movies, talk about Peter Jackson and in with you, Nick, and really just break into it in a big time way. Obviously the most like culturally significant filmmaker we've talked about, by a large margin. Our show kind of mission statement is to not talk about directors who have had this kind of cultural impact. So, we're not going to do it a lot. We're only going to do it when the audience votes on it. But, it was really great to do it and fun to do it.
Ben Affleck could still change the world.
He could still change the world with his little Boston noir movies. I'm not sure exactly how the scheduling's going to work out, what you guys at home are hearing, but we're taking a little recording break. We're recording this just so everyone knows, like mid-November. We're taking a break until the new year for recording. I'm sure it won't be a big break actually for listeners listening, but I'm thinking we come back, we start out with our like kind of award show as our kickoff to our next season, and then we'll do our next director. And Nick, do you want to tell people who our next director is going to be?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at the films of Lynn Ramsey, who is a very, very different filmmaker from Peter Jackson, I would say.
Yes, a very different filmmaker, though some intersection because she was originally supposed to direct The Lovely Bones.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's it. We're just every show from here on out is going to be in some way related to The Lovely Bones.
It's got to be like 6 degrees of a separation kind of thing. So or Kevin Bacon. So it's got to be like one of these movies. Another director had to have been attached or produced or written, and we're going to do that director.
Do you know that I have 1 degree of Kevin Bacon? I always have to tell people about this.
No, I didn't know that.
I was in a short film. I was a production assistant on it. He wasn't in it, but he did some voice work in it, and I was an extra in a bus station scene. So 1 degree of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of like 0 degree of Kevin Bacon if you're in a movie with him.
I guess that's true.
1 degree would be there'd be somebody you were in the movie who was in a movie with him. I used to play that game.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. No, it is 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. Okay. So it was Christopher Walken, I think, who did the voice work in that movie.
Oh, okay.
But there's like the star of it was like this young girl who played Kevin Bacon, she played Sean Penn's daughter, someone's daughter in Mystic River, like a year later. So Kevin Bacon's in Mystic River. So I have 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. So not even as cool as just saying.
When I worked at Best Buy, the guys I worked with in the media department were, they weren't like big, huge movie guys that just worked there, but they were like, they were like flummoxed by the idea that they could give me just what they felt like 2 completely random actors and ask me to connect them, and then I could do it, pretty quickly. There was like, I can't believe you connected these 2 people or whatever, And then, of course, you do it with Brian, and Brian's like, somebody who was in one movie in 1936 and another person who was in one movie in like 1952. And I'm like, Brian, I can't play this game with you. You make it not fun.
Yeah. And he does make it not fun. He always destroys me in that game. So then I like bring up some like, French noir thing from the 60s or something. They're like an Italian Bava movie or something like that. And he's like,
I'm like, be in the spirit of the game, man. We're trying to have fun here. We're trying to stump each other.
No, but like
really.
I always have to show him up. Like, well, I know some obscure shit that you don't know. And,
yeah. So it's what it's always about. So that wraps up Peter Jackson. Next time you hear from us, we'll be doing our second annual Intrepid Filmographers Awards. So look forward to that. And then we'll be covering the films of Lynn Ramsey. So until then, thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you, everybody who's listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.